we can begin up with our fireside chat, and the topic is designing the future, lessons from a 10-figure brand. Neil Foote interviews Roger Hooks. So here I would like to give an immense pleasure to invite Neil on the stage, and can we have a big round of applause for him? He's an entrepreneur, media executive, author, and educator. And sitting along with him, Roger Hooks, creative director at Supermicro. Can we have a big round of applause for him? He's a visionary force in the world of corporate creativity, seamlessly blending contemporary flair with timeless design principles. So, over to you, both.
Excellent. Good afternoon. How is everyone? Excellent. Thank you for being here for day 2 of this wonderful conference. And I'm excited about the conversation that we're about to have today. I mean, the brief description and bio of Roger Hooks is a lot deeper than that, and you should definitely check out the full bio that's on the website. But just let me set this up that here's a marketer with 30 plus years of experience who really started out, and if any of you know about alpha graphics, right, pasting up stuff. So he's come a long way to now work for a company, Supermicro, that's a multi-billion-dollar company, like $50 billion company.
Yeah,
something
market
like
cap of 50 billion.
Market cap of $50 billion. And he has been integral in helping to define their brand and their marketing strategy for almost, 25 years or more?
With the company 18.
18, all right.
Yeah.
So let's dive in. We have a short amount of time, and we've got a lot of ground to cover. Roger and I had a great conversation a couple weeks ago. So we will scratch the surface on these. Roger will be around if you have other questions. I think this builds on what we've heard a little bit earlier today, Roger. Previous panel talked about storytelling and the role of how that plays. A little bit earlier, we talked about data and the importance of data in making decisions about predictive behavior. But tell us a little bit about what you do now and what your role at the company is, and then we'll dive right into that.
Okay, so as mentioned, I'm the creative director for Supermicro, have been for 18 years. Started out just as a graphic designer there. When I entered the company, I had a history of creative direction, but at the time the economy was slow, so I was looking for a way to get in the door easily. Then I worked my way up from the bottom to where I am now over the 18 years. Now I'm overseeing the entire creative development and assist on the marketing side, messaging globally. So I can have a day that's as simple as creating the logo for the anniversary to developing what the booth strategy is for our trade shows worldwide. So it's a wide range of responsibilities, including motion graphics, 3D animation, and video production. I'm actually overseeing a video production as I speak on my phone as they complete it in Silicon Valley right now. So a wide breadth of responsibilities under the creative realm.
Another testimony of why digital tech is part of our world, and we can multitask no matter where we are. Mm-hmm. One of the terms you use in our conversation, that as much as you have this huge creative background, you talk about data-driven decisions to help you inform your creativity. What does that mean, and translate that to us for the audience out here?
Well, in creative, it's not happening enough. I'll interview people for creative roles, user experience at times, and they'll immediately dive into what they're going to make it look like. And I want to know the reasons they're going to make it look like one way or another. The data-driven aspect of it is I actually picked up about year 2000 when I was working with a direct marketing contractor, and he turned me on to direct mail. And all of that was data-driven. Everything from him telling me we use black ink over purple ink, a variety of things that were driven by numbers. So that stuck with me. So I'm constantly looking for, why is the web advertising performing better than the last campaign? I want to know why they're clicking on one product versus the other, and help that inform us on what things are going to work better and to help us improve for the future. So I just met with our social media manager, and I was looking at. She showed us a report, and she threw a number up on the screen, and I was looking at it, and I said, well, okay, that looks like a number. I don't know what's relative to that number. So I said, next time, could you show me like trending from last year, trending from our last campaign, so we can see, and the people in the room could see, are we getting better, are we getting worse, and why? So those are the things that help inform the entire marketing team, especially the creative, on what we're going to use moving forward to make sure that our campaigns are most effective.
You're part of creativity for any organization, particularly it always falls on the marketing team, is ideas. Mm-hmm. But the marketing team alone can't come up with those ideas because we're constantly needing information, mm-hmm. right? I don't know how many conversations every day I have. It's like, well, that's cool, but tell me more. Yeah. Neil, you need to market this. Okay, well, that's nice, but what? What am I marketing? Mm-hmm. How do you come up with marketing ideas, and what makes a good idea?
Well, let's say what makes a good idea. A good idea will withstand criticism. That's one of the things that I teach my team. So we'll come up with an idea, and some people, they want to protect it. They don't want anybody to poke at it. I see that a lot of times with some of our executives. They come up with something, they just want everybody to follow it. I try to train my team to, we'll throw something out there, we'll see if it can withstand the criteria that we put together for what it's going to be used for. I have what I call a green light session, where we put things together and we'll throw ideas out, and the reason why it's called green light, because no one can criticize your idea. It kind of levels the playing field on the titles and the egos that might enter the room. So if they say, oh, I don't like that idea, or they pick at it, they get kicked out of the room. That's the only rule of the green light session. So we use that to get as many ideas out as possible. Just a quick story, I had a friend of mine invite me to a brainstorming session, and he said, I've been wasting time on this for 3 weeks, and I haven't come up with anything. And I said, give me 2 hours, we'll knock it out. So in that green light session, we threw all the ideas up there with some loose criteria to get the ideas up on the whiteboard. Once we got those ideas together, we then created categories and criteria to start dwindling it down to the best of the ideas. So one by one, we came up with the best idea, and then we finally finalized on one within the 2 hours. He couldn't believe it. He had actually told me before that session that if you can come up with the 2 hours, then I'll eat the whiteboard. So at the end of that session, I said, do you want ketchup or mustard with that? Because we did it, and we knocked it out. The name of the company actually was a dialect from a Indian dialect that we used the phonetic, the way it sounded phonetically for the name of the company, which meant a new idea tried differently or something like that. So it fit the criteria of what he was looking for to name his startup, and yeah, they were happy with it, just using that green light session.
Yeah, well, and we've all been in kind of similar green light sessions. Yeah, how does it, and some of those don't translate to action. You actually were able to translate that to action. What's the key in translating ideas to reality? And what, if I'm a marketer, whether it's for a company or my own firm, how do I make sure that we don't get lost in this overthink, studying? What's the process we use to kind of get to a decision?
What tends to happen is we lose lose sight of the reason why. We'll start out with, we need to do something, and we start running down a road without really knowing why we want to do it. So we ask that question in the beginning. Why do we want to do this, and what's the use for it, and then what do we expect from it? And I think when we answer those questions in the beginning, then it's a lot harder to lose sight of it at the end. So then you end up using it. Using that same green light kind of session, we had one of our most successful campaigns for Supermicro, which even the VP, who's not so fond of the headbutting we do sometimes at coming up with ideas, but even then, even with that, he says, hey, that was one of the strongest campaigns we come up with, and that was using the green light session. looking at what we wanted to accomplish from the campaign, from the beginning, and then carrying it on through the criteria towards the end.
So you're saying it's okay to ask why are we doing this, and what does this mean, and where is this going to take us? We should ask that question?
We should ask that question, and I implore my entire design team, the entire creative team, when I'm not around, if somebody comes to you, ask that question first. Don't be an order taker. Make sure that they understand what they're asking for, because a lot of times, again, they're just thinking that the action is accomplishment, and that's not the case.
Yeah, well, we've all been there sometimes. We ask the why, but how do we counter that resistance? And I think you alluded to a little bit earlier of our boss or a team member, usually our boss, who might say, well, no, I want it to look, the A needs to look this way, or the message needs to say this. And clearly the team has done the research that you've done. By the time it probably has gotten to that executive, you've done mock-ups and redesigns and kicked them back. So what's that process of trying to help us translate that to our leadership?
Some of that, again, I'll refer to my creative team. I train them or encourage them to use what I call design logic, especially in the graphic design. Everybody has an opinion on what looks good and what doesn't look good. I make a joke and say, well, just because he designed his bathroom, he thinks he can design his campaign. So with that, we use basic principles: composition, color theory, balance, are just a few of the things that I help them stay focused on in the creative development, and when we're articulating why an idea is good or even great versus not so good or not so great. So keeping that criteria in mind help people that just have an opinion, or to debate somebody that just has an opinion with something more concrete that they will have a hard time just going against.
And so with those criteria, color, composition, are you grading ideas on those, or is that just kind of a conversation you may have with your team? How do you put a value to that, or assessment that helps kind of put some, quantity or qualitative as opposed to just qualitative?
So there is some loose criteria to each one, but for the most part, you can see something that has balance or it doesn't. So I try to keep it to a yes or no, less of the gray area. It has strong composition or it doesn't. It's easily legible or it isn't. I can understand it, comprehensive, or it's not. So that nails it down to yes or no. That makes it really clear to when you're trying to convince a team or defend your idea on it delivers or it doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, one of the things I thought was really fascinating when we were chatting is, even with this process, you and your team work very creatively together. And there's something that you said that stood out that said that you may not like the idea, but you challenge your team member to say, walk me through it.
Yeah.
Tell me your design logic. How can you do that? Why? I mean, you're the boss. Aren't they just supposed to do stuff for you? Or how do you balance that?
Well, I remember when I was a young designer and how I hated I'd bring up a design and then the boss would say, I don't like it, without any real direction on why. So I remember that. I still remember when I was a young designer, and I don't want to put another designer in that position. So over the years, I just developed this kind of way to level the playing field on new designers that are still capable of having a good idea, or new creatives that are still capable of having a new idea versus a more seasoned or veteran one. So using that same type of design logic, which applies to animation, I might refer to more flow and rhythm, if it's animation, video, film. If it's a performance like voiceover, then I might talk about enunciation, clarity, and emotion. So these things that I give them as vocabulary to use in defending their idea. So if I can see that they follow these types of this type of logic, then even though I may not like the idea, I have to agree with, yes, it is clearly stated, or no, it's not.
Yeah.
Or yeah, it does have good composition. It does have good flow. It does have good rhythm. It does have good emotion. even though I may not like the way they or what they presented,
Yeah.
but it is still effective, I'll say your design wins, your creative wins, and we will move forward, and I'll give them my full blessing on it.
That's great. I mean, I think that's extremely supportive to the team, and I think as a journalist, I used to face that with editors, right? They'd kick back the story to me and say, oh, "Neil, this just doesn't work," and it's like,
Why?
okay, why?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Just fix it, right?
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like, well, that doesn't help me, right?
Yeah.
Because either I continue to make that same mistake down the road, or I lose my confidence so much that I'm not even going to try to push the edge, particularly when it comes to creativity.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
what I've just let me add
Yeah,
real quick.
please.
So what I've seen is with executives that aren't so knowledgeable about the creative or the design process, they'll start to pick up that vocabulary from my junior people because they use it so often. We'll talk about, like I said, balance and clarity, flow and rhythm. So I'll hear them say, "Oh, that doesn't have good flow. That doesn't have good rhythm." But at least they're using words and vocabulary that everybody can relate to. And sometimes they may misplace the way they use it, but now they're using the words and we can say, well, that's not really flow, you're talking about rhythm. And we'll educate them along the way, but eventually then the entire department is using vocabulary that we can use to critique, but in a very educated way, and not so hard to understand, hard to follow.
Yeah, so you're building buy-in from the ground up, and then, I mean, let's talk a little bit about this. Actually, you're in that room with the executives. It's a computing firm. It's software or hardware? It's
Hardware.
Hardware, right? So these are folks who are pretty much very focused on certain standards, certain processes. How do you, as a creative, kind of walk into that room and help them embrace this sense of having a green light session or a design logic, because they have certain things that are very rigid in their mind, but you've seen that change over the years? What are some of the tools you use in that room with the C-suite that helps translate why marketing is so important to the company itself?
Well, I think with the engineers, especially in the company I work for, it's very engineering driven. When I stick to the more concrete delivery of what works and what doesn't work, they can relate to that. So if I say that's not legible. We have a brand palette that if you use it incorrectly, it is very illegible. So you have to be very specific and particular in even where you use the colors, because like I said, if you use incorrectly, it's just not very legible. So an engineer might just want to throw those together because the brand palette says that I can. So when I have very definitive answers for, just it's legible or not. People could see it from a distance or not. It makes an impact or not. They can understand that, ones and zeros. It's on or it's off.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. It's a box.
Yeah,
What else
yeah.
does it need to look like, right? We were talking a little bit about AI earlier, and some might say, well, Neil, I mean, this is a moot conversation because I can just go to ChatGPT and I can ask for 10 ideas for a marketing campaign. What's the role of AI in the world that you live in this $1 billion, $50 billion cap company that's continuing to grow? I'm sure the company has grander plans to grow even bigger, but how is AI going to affect what you and your team does?
Well, so far, what we've been able to do is utilize it for generating loose concepts much more quickly. But when I say loose, it's a lot tighter than what loose used to be in 10 minutes. So to give you an example, I have some hobbies, and we need one of the founders of the particular hobby, he wanted a particular image to make an impact in a group of people for a Facebook group. He said, I want something to catch people's attention. So it's actually a semi-pro football team, and the company's called the Knights. So I said, okay, why don't we put a picture together that's guys in a round table session. They have part football gear on, part knight's armor on, in a dining room of a castle. So I typed all this up, very, very specific on how I wanted to look. And I got a full illustrated image pretty close. It didn't fill in the face, but it was close enough that I was able to use it. And I did that in about 10 minutes time. Now in 10 minutes, I'm also somebody that can sketch the idea. You would get a line drawing from me that was really rough. But in this case, for this application, I got something that I was able to use. So for quick ideation, it's actually very helpful in showing like the C-suite, my managers, the heads of the departments, what the idea can look like, because they're not so visual. But it gives them the visual that we can work from, and everybody can see and have a direction.
There you go. So it's a tool that you're using, not the final tool.
Yeah.
And what do you say to your creative team about this? Are they allowed to use it, or what are there kind of parameters that you say, hey, use this, but?
Yeah, actually this week I was asking them, and I sent one that's in Taiwan to research it more. He's on the 3D animation side to see how we can apply it. And again, thinking of it to help us create ideas faster and get a direction, because we lose a lot of time in trying to help the stakeholders visualize what the end result is going to be. So revisions, sometimes redirection in that process, we lose time that could be applied to developing or creating a better quality in the end result.
It's fascinating. I mean, I'll open it up to questions, because I think that was my signal. A bit of a personal question. So, did you ever think you'd be doing what you're doing now, from those days at Alpha Graphics, or those days sketching out some designs or characters? I mean, how has that journey evolved for you, and how are you feeling about kind of where you are now and where you want to take that creative expertise?
I had never
Yeah.
thought I would be where I am now, doing animation, film, video, booth graphics, all in one position. No, I never thought that was going to happen. When I got into school, I thought I would be, at best, maybe an art director making $50K a year. I thought I'd be set.
Seems like a lot of money when we're young, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you live in California, so
Yeah,
that
yeah,
doesn't
that's-
get you anything.
Yeah, not much of anything. You get like almost like a garage or something, or a closet for that amount of money. But yeah, it evolved. I would say in taking on everything that came in the door, every opportunity, I raced to it. I didn't run from it. I looked at it as an opportunity to learn. And a lot of times, you're the only person willing to take a project on, and then that becomes your responsibility, or an added one. So I say over the years, from being a paste-up artist, where I started, I couldn't wait to be a typesetter on the Mac Plus, 2 SE. And then from there, I couldn't wait to become an illustrator on Mac Paint. So all of these early things turned into me teaching Adobe Illustrator 88 way back in the day, just because I was a quick adopter, early adopter of the new technologies, new things that were being used. And that just continued and continued. There was nobody in my company doing video when they're ready to do video. I grabbed it. And now I'm the person that's head of doing video. I spend most of my time doing that than any other thing. So no, the quick answer to your question is no, I did not think I was going to turn into having all these responsibilities and creative outlets.
I love it. And lastly, is a bit of any words of advice to the marketers or future marketers out here, or those who are trying to create strategies along the lines that you are for their companies or for other individuals? What word of advice would you have for them?
For the marketers, pure marketers, I would say find creatives that you believe in and trust their instinct. A lot of times I feel like the marketers feel they have too many answers, which will conflict with the creative drive of the creative team. So work more collaboratively with the creative team, and I think you'll be able to go a lot further I would say one of those things. Then for creatives, try to understand the business. There's been some times where I've come across people like this one lady that was actually the head of the web team. She didn't understand how some of the aspects of marketing worked with her web team. So that was astonishing to me. So if you're on the creative side, try to understand the business, not just your task. I'm going to create a logo, I'm going to do a brochure. Understand how that's going to bring business and drive revenue. So those things are what's really helpful in driving your career when you understand how your work impacts real business. So when I go talk to the CEO, I'm talking about numbers to him that are dollar signs. I believe that this can move. Actually, I did that. Our stock price was at a certain level, and we were just coming on the cusp of the AI frenzy. And I said, this project that I'm working on right here is going to open the door to people knowing that we're a strong player in this area. I said, within, I don't know if I said a specific time, but the stock went up $2 after I told him that within a week. 2 weeks after that, it was up $20. Then it went up $100. And I texted him back and I said, it might be coincidence, but no, I said it on this date. Here it is. And it went from $90 to $1,200 in the span of 6 months. So I won't say, because he would hate for me to say that I'm the reason, but I did call it.
There you go. Well, we have witnesses here that you called it, and I hope you have options. Take advantage of that. Roger, this has been great, great conversation. This continual evolution. You don't know where you begin and where you'll end. I love this concept for all of us to ask the question why, right? That part of that creative exercise should be empowering the team to ask why. And I think this also notion of really ultimately, particularly for a publicly traded company, if it doesn't relate to the money, then there's no way you can convince anyone in the C-suite that this is a cool department to even have. But please, a round of applause for Roger. And I don't know if we have time for a question or so.
So we can take questions.
Okay.
So anyone having a question? Go on. Seriously.
Yeah, you have one there?
Thanks, Roger. Really insightful. Would you, I would say, what is the negative impact of making creative highly connected to business KPIs, like made to your work? I'm sure in the maybe early 1990s, you had more wild ideas, you know what I mean, more freedom. At the moment, it's very restricted, and you have people like me that know nothing about colors saying an opinion because they think that the click-through rate is going to be low. So how do you deal with this, and what do you feel as a professional in this industry that you get intruders like myself, like talking about your work?
Well, when you talk about it being very restrictive, we still have to be able to deliver a strong result in this tight area of creativity. When I was hired to Supermicro, the manager at the time, he said to me that it was very restrictive. He said, your portfolio is wild. You have a lot of creativity, but we have a very tight box. Can you still deliver in that tight box? And I said, do you know Bruce Lee? And he goes, yeah, Bruce Lee. He's Chinese, and a lot of the company is Chinese. And I said, well, Bruce Lee says if he has his hand this far from the area he's going to punch, he can punch it and send that across the room. I said, that's all the space I need. And I got the job. So in that, when you have the criteria and you have like the KPIs that you mentioned, and you think that the click-through rate is going to be low, we still have the creative side, and again, using our both instinct and creative logic that I discussed with you on how we believe that it will increase, because we're thinking that from the very beginning. When you come back to us, for example, using your example, saying, we're going to get, we're used to 50,000 click-throughs, let's say in a week. And then we're thinking 50,000 click-throughs. Now we have a goal. This week I talked to my team about goals, and we have to improve over this 50,000. How are we going to do that? So you're not privy to that conversation, but we're thinking about it. We're having conversations about what's successful and what hasn't been successful, what the customers are responding to, and what they're not responding to. So we're constantly thinking on those things, especially myself, when I discuss with the team how we're gonna inspire and motivate the audience that's responding to, in this case, a online campaign, to improve upon it. Because you have the data on what is existing, but you never had that data before until you got there. So someone has to have the creativity on making the next step. And that's not just in that instance of marketing or digital advertising, but in business overall. We make it to one plateau, and then somebody has a vision on how we're going to get to the next one. And with that is some risk, but it's a a risk that's calculated.
Great answer.
Thanks for the wonderful fireside to both. So can we have a photo with
So
both
can we
of
have
you?
a big round of applause for Roger Hooks, Neil Foote. And as you know, we are celebrating 20 years of SEO branding and reputation management with Ascendant Group, for Ascendant Group. So many congratulations to both of them, as they are also, partners and associated with Ascendant Group branding. And let's have a group fee.
I would like to ask Mitali to present certificate of participation to Roger Hooks and also some goodies as he missed the yesterday's ceremony. So come on guys, huge round of applause for Roger Hooks. And also a trophy to our best moderator, Neil Foote, who moderated the beautiful 2 sessions for us. So come on guys, huge round of applause for Neil Foote.